I think what we need to do is really, really strengthen the primary healthcare system because unfortunately, children's cancer manifests as fever, cough, etc., where lots and lots of tests etc. required to get done. Only if you're persistent and after multiple tests, a doctor is able to really diagnose what has happened. So, in the primary healthcare system, if we are able to provide and train doctors how to we catch this early on, then there is merit. The other thing is also there is still a lot of taboo around cancer. When you say cancer, still people think it's the end of the world.
Right.
We need to really create awareness and say childhood cancer is as curable as, I would say, a simple disease.
Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a vodcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you are new to our channel, please consider subscribing to it and hit the bell icon so that you don't miss an update. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very accomplished woman from Mumbai, India, who is doing a lot of good work in the social sector, Purnota Dutta Bahl. Purnota, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ashutosh.
Thank you. Purnota is the founder and CEO of Cuddles Foundation, which is focused on fighting childhood cancer and with food and nutrition. She has worked with the Hindustan Times and Shadi.com. And more importantly, she's a national award winner for child welfare from the President of India. So, Purnota, let's talk about Cuddles Foundation first. Tell me about what you do here.
So, Cuddles Foundation is actually very special. It is one of the kind of foundation in the world that focuses on nutrition for children with cancer. Before Cuddles Foundation, some of the statistics I came across were truly heartbreaking. We were losing about 40% of all children who were under cancer treatment because they were malnourished and they just couldn't assimilate chemotherapy. Once they were put on chemotherapy, their bodies would react as if it's been, poisoned. So at that point, we decided to do nutritional intervention with these kids so that they become strong and they go on to complete their treatment.
Wow. So tell me, what made you decide to look at this major challenge our country faces?
So, I wish I could tell you that it was something really more than the universe conspiring and serendipity. I was, like you said, I was heading marketing at Shadi.com, and I had my firstborn, and I ended up going to Tata Memorial because I was a person who was funding treatments for children, and I was on my maternity, so I decided to go meet those kids. Once I walked there, Ashutosh, I was just not prepared to see what I saw, because most of us don't have an experience with government hospitals where they are treating children with cancer. And I wish I could tell you some of the stories, but in the interest of time, what I saw really broke my heart.
Wow.
And so I went to the social worker. By the end of it, I was bawling. And one thing I must mention that as I was leaving the ward after meeting those kids, there was one child whose face I couldn't see. She was sitting on her mother's lap. I could just see her toes, her feet. And they were very chubby, like my firstborn Zahana's. And, it was that moment of epiphany where I thought it could have been my child. Like she even had the black thread tied around the same leg as my daughter. At that moment, I went to the social worker and I said, hey, what else can I do? I'm writing a check. I don't think that's enough. And she told me, Purnota, we get enough funding because we are Tata Memorial Hospital around treatment. But we have nobody supporting nutrition for these children.
Wow.
And that just didn't make sense because as Indians, what do we do? Like food is the central theme of our celebration, all our sadnesses. And that's how I chanced upon this. And I said, well, I am happy to support it. And I met a doctor who was leading the thought leadership around nutrition with cancer at that point in time. And it was my meeting that doctor, being there at the right time when he was looking for a partner, that I started Cuddles Foundation.
Amazing, amazing. So,
So,
Purnota, what an amazing start to such an amazing journey. But tell me, why is nutrition so important for pediatric cancer?
so Ashutosh, I would like to start by saying nutrition is important, period. And
Correct.
there is now a lot of awareness.
Yes.
Now imagine if you're sick, how important nutrition is, right? Even before you pop an antibiotic pill, a doctor says, have something and have the pill.
Mm.
Now imagine if you're a child who's going through chemotherapy and you're malnourished.
Wow.
Chemotherapy is given, a lot of people know, but for those who don't, I'd like to say that it's given as per the body weight. So
Mhm.
if you're 10 years old, you're supposed to weigh, let's say, 30 kilos, for
Mhm.
example, right? And you're supposed to get 30 units of chemotherapy. But if you're malnourished and if you're, let's say, 15 kilos, you're only getting 15 units.
Okay.
That means your treatment is not happening properly. And even those 15 units, if you give, and sometimes the body reacts as if it's been poisoned because chemotherapy is a very, very aggressive form of treatment.
That's true.
And hence, nutrition is step zero or step one, because you can have all the funding in the world, but if your body is not able to take the treatment, that medicine is no good. And that's why nutrition is important, not only in children with cancer, even in adults with cancer,
Mm.
or with anyone fighting any disease. Nutrition heals at stem cell level. And
Mm.
that's how nutrition is so important.
Wow. Wow. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I have personally in my family lost my younger brother's wife at 43 to cancer, lost my youngest brother at 48 to cancer. So I, understand the pain that people go through when cancer strikes anyone and how it impacts the family. But tell me, when you started with Tata Memorial Hospital, what were some of your key challenges?
Well, when I started with Tata Memorial Hospital, the first key challenge was I knew nothing about philanthropy.
Correct.
I knew nothing about nutrition.
Mm,
I knew a lot about business. I knew a lot about being a mother.
mm,
And so those are the two things I used, and I found partners
mm.
who knew about nutrition and who knew about philanthropy.
Okay.
That was challenge number one.
Mm,
Challenge number two was 8 years back, there wasn't as much awareness about the importance of nutrition in treatment. I
mm,
remember initially with Dr. Arora and with Tata Memorial Hospital, we did a conference where 300 doctors, nurses, nutritionists participated to talk about why nutrition is important.
mm.
And I remember some of the resistance from doctors to say, well, in India, there is no money around treatment and you're
Correct.
talking about nutrition.
Correct.
The third big issue that I faced at that point in time is everyone I met, of course, apart from friends and family who gave it because, I was telling them to give.
Mm,
Everybody's reaction was, well, we're happy to write a check for a treatment. Why nutrition?
mm.
Because at that point, people were more comfortable if it was like set buckets in their head.
Correct.
Feeding is equal to orphanages, temples, pandits,
Mm,
cows, and money is equal to treatment.
mm.
So those were the first few key challenges that I had.
Mm.
I'm happy to tell you that they lasted just in the very initial phase.
Fantastic. And would you like to share with us some interesting anecdotes from your early wins, if I can use the term?
Yes, I mean, the first story that anchors me to what I do is of a child called Nandu at a certain hospital.
Mm.
So Nandu was one of those kids who was abandoned by their parents at the hospital corridors.
Okay.
And before we all jump into judgment of the parents, I
No,
must,
Malki. Absolutely.
uh,
No
because
judgment.
I was the first to judge. I was like, what
Mhm.
kind of parents leave their children at the hospital corridor? I would never do it.
Right.
But I must tell you, we don't have insight into their lives. A lot of
Mm.
parents abandon them because they think somebody there will take better care of the child than they are able to,
Yes.
or they have other children to feed, and they
Mm.
make the toughest decision between saying this child or this child. Anyway, for whatever reason, Nandu was abandoned. He was 10 years old, and at 10 years, Ashutosh, he had the, I would say, wherewithal and the intelligence to know that I need to support myself. So he would go to this hospital is in an industrial area.
Mhm.
He would go to these small factories around and do put buttons, sew stuff, etc., and get that 20, 30, 40 rupees a day. And then obviously he was not doing well because he was under treatment and he was doing all that. So we found Nandu, we adopted him. Within 2 months, Nandu's health status had changed. Little bit hair had started coming because with the time saved, he was studying, he was not going to those factories. Nandu went into remission, and his dream was that I want to work with Cuddles and I want to help children like me.
Mm.
And Nandu's story is really the days when it's tough. I keep going back to that story. And that's
What a powerful story. And he works with you now?
No, he doesn't work with us right now.
Okay, wonderful.
But he's still young. There's still some way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And young people have such amazing aspirations. So, Purnota, tell me, other than food and nutrition, what can be done to support pediatric cancer? And also, how rampant is pediatric cancer in our country?
So I'll start with your last part first. There are studies, Ashutosh, which are estimates, which say that about 60,000 kids get cancer in the country every single year.
Wow.
Out of the 60,000 kids, the most heartbreaking aspect is, again, studies and estimates. They say about 10 to 12,000 kids only make it to the hospitals.
Oh my God.
We don't know what happens to the rest of the kids. That's the statistic. The good news around that is that the percentage of kids with cancer in the population is not going up. The percentage remains the same year on year on year. Okay. Now, in terms of saying what else can be done with these kids, and if it was any other time, my answer would have been different. But in India, all of us are fighting COVID. Our children right now are facing the double battle of COVID and pediatric cancer. And of course, all the other side effects of no employment, parents having absolutely no money. So I think what can be done to support children or people with cancer is food support. If we are, as a country, able to provide a lot of food grain support to these families and these children, what will happen is these children will stay in treatment. So last year we saw in our hospitals itself, only about 56% out of even those 10,000 were able to take treatment.
Interesting.
So one of the biggest things I would say is a lot of food support that is required for these kids and these families, children and otherwise.
Okay. So then through our conversation, how does someone in Mumbai reach out to you?
So various ways to reach out to us. The easiest way is to go to our website, which is www.cuddlesfoundation.org. And there is a connect to us, there is a donate, there is a volunteer, all kinds of, facilities there where you can put in your request.
Okay.
You can reach us through our Instagram handle, which is Cuddles Foundation, or Facebook handle, which is Cuddles Foundation. Send us a direct message. We have a very active team that looks at addressing people. And, the more people we are able to get into the mission, the better it is for the country.
Absolutely.
Thank you for asking that.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of people, since you are in Mumbai, who will hear us and hopefully will reach out to you and say that, listen, we want to be able to pay for some of the food or send you some food.
Absolutely. But if I could just take another minute and say there are 3 ways I always say you can help. Of course, you can help us with the gift of abundance and resource that you have. The other one is really the gift of time. So if you are committed to some other cause, which is completely understandable. If you're a professional, if you have a special talent, you can gift your talent to Cuddles Foundation, by volunteering with us, or gift of voice. Even if you speak to one more person about this cause, one more person in the world knows how important nutrition is to the child with cancer. So I think these 3 gifts are extremely important for us. And any way anyone can volunteer, we welcome it.
Fantastic. And you're currently only focused in Mumbai, or are you in other big cities also?
Yeah, so we are actually a pan-India organization. We work across 35 hospitals in the country, in every metro and many, many smaller cities in the country, including Lucknow, Belgaum, Dibrugarh. Again, our centers are there on the website. And if you're listening from any part of the country, you can go and see and make a difference to the hospital in your city.
No, then I stand corrected. So, whoever is listening to our conversation, please do remember that, Purnota and her team are all over the country, and children all over the country need their your support. Purnota, you had mentioned that your vision is to take Cuddles to other countries. Talk to me about your vision and why do you want to do this?
So, Ashutosh, there are countries in the world which unfortunately still today don't have what we have. We are better than many, many, many countries.
Okay.
And it's my deep belief that no child deserves to suffer the treatment without nutrition. So it would be a dream to be able to take what we know to countries outside. Little bit of it comes from this sense of patriotism where we always see Red Cross, the Gates Foundation coming and doing aid for children in India. And now here's an opportunity for someone from India to take this and help the world out there, where we are not only people who receive, but also people who give. So that's basically the dream. Currently, what's possible is with all the information that we have, because unfortunately, we see staggering numbers that no one else in the world sees.
Right.
So what we are able to do is impart the knowledge that we have gained to other countries to say, here's what we know. You're most welcome to take our protocols, to take what we know. In the future, we would love to collaborate with not-for-profits from around the world to teach them what we know and take this program globally.
Very interesting. One more question relating to Cuddles, and then I move to the next segment. You mentioned that about 60,000 children are impacted, and only 10 or 15,000 actually get to a hospital. Is there a merit in having a very strong helpline where parents can actually reach out? You probably do already.
So I think, and again, I am talking from my personal experience. The caveat is I have not read research. But I think what we need to do is really, really strengthen the primary healthcare system, because unfortunately, children's cancer manifests as fever, cough, etc., where lots and lots of tests required to get done. Only if you're persistent and after multiple tests, a doctor is able to really diagnose what has happened. So in the primary healthcare system, if we are able to provide and train doctors how to catch this early on, then there is merit. The other thing is also there is still a lot of taboo around cancer. When you say cancer, still people think it's the end of the world.
Right.
We need to really create awareness and say childhood cancer is as curable as, I would say, a simple disease. A couple of centers around the world see cure rates as 94%.
Wow.
Right? So just spreading this awareness will also create a lot of visibility into saying, if it's caught, then let's take them to a medical center rather than resorting to jhar, fook, local medicines, etc. So that would be step one, even before we start thinking about a helpline number.
Okay. And therefore, a follow-up question for you would be that how does a young parent even understand that my child's cough, cold, fever could be something much more?
Unfortunately, the parents can't understand it. It's up to the GP and the pediatrician to understand it. The only thing they can do is keep up with the tests and the treatment, because many, many, many things need to be ruled out before even a GP can tell you or a pediatrician can tell you that it is leukemia and it's child cancer. So that's what they can do to keep at it and to keep going back and not to ignore the fever. I mean, and it's hard, especially if you're a person with no means and if you have to go and drive for 18 hours, etc. Very, very hard to do that. But I think to answer your question, to my mind, as a layperson who's not a doctor, that would be one thing that I would do.
Okay. Wonderful. So let's now move to the next segment of our conversation with a few questions for you personally.
Yeah, sure.
The first question is that, for someone who was in the corporate world and who is now pivoted, literally, to use the word from the startup world, into a very different social segment, what would you say, Purnota, 3 of your key milestones in your life or your career?
Well, the first thing I want to tell you is that what I understood is that there is no difference between startup and a not-for-profit because
Absolutely.
the rules of the business remain the same.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
all my apprehensions about I don't know anything about it, thankfully were misplaced
Mhm.
because I did know how to run an enterprise.
Correct.
If you ask me three key milestones in my life, they would be more personal because they eventually helped me in my professional life.
Mhm.
And the first one would be, as cheesy as it sounds, I would think it is meeting my life partner
Mhm.
because I met him at business school, and the expectation there when you meet a person in business school is that you'll be a double income family, and then both of you would be contributors and you'd be partners. But I was lucky enough to find somebody who supported my life choices,
Okay.
irrespective of what they were,
Mm.
which eventually helped me to do what I am doing today. So that would be my first key turning point that
Okay.
helped me reach him. The second one would be the birth of my daughter
Mhm.
again,
Okay.
because if I didn't have her, I don't know if my heart would bleed the way it bled when I saw that child. Because I'd read somewhere nothing moves you to action as empathy, which is the feeling of saying, my child, my grandparent, my dog could have been there.
Correct.
That is when you move.
Mm.
And I think the third thing, it actually all boils down to people.
Mm.
It's really meeting Shalini Jatia, who's the head of social services at Tata Memorial, who told me that this is a problem and who saw the potential in me and who believed in me, who said, why don't you start doing this?
Mm.
And that's where it led to where I am today.
Mm.
So these are the three things again.
Fabulous. Fabulous. My next question to you is that, from where you stand today, and you've achieved a lot in a very short period of time, what does success mean to Purnota?
Success, actually, again, it's a cliche for a reason, is to me very, very, it means that not needing to work for a day in your life,
Mm.
which means that you enjoy doing something so much that it doesn't feel like work.
Mm.
And the reason that I'm able to keep at it is because it doesn't feel like work. It's not, it's something that I look forward to doing.
Okay.
And as I have grown, I also think success to me feels and looks like what it feels to me like.
Mm.
uh, we're all conditioned. We go to business schools, we're at school, we're all conditioned to see success is supposed to look a particular way.
Correct.
But I think what age has taught me is that it is supposed to look the way it is supposed to look to
Mm.
you. And that's one of the reasons why I sort of feel very calm and happy about where I am and what I am doing, and there is no rush to run anywhere.
Terrific. I've got time for two more questions for
Yeah,
you.
sure.
So my next question to you is, you work with so many children. And therefore, my question is that if you, Purnota, were a role model to millions of children who closely followed you and your life choices, what is the one thing you would change in yourself?
That's an interesting question because that's something I need to change in me every single day, even for the kids who are at home, who are
Okay.
my kids. I have three girls.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things I'd like to change is my love for flexibility and my love for going with the flow.
Okay.
Again, as good as it is and it gives room for creativity, I think there is a very something to be said about discipline and
Mm.
following processes and following simple instructions. And I've been a rebel, and I have, things used to be told to me needs to be done a certain way, and I would do it the opposite way just to see what happens. But till I became smart enough and I realized that I don't need to make those mistakes which teachers or people who've written books have already done. I could make my own new mistakes.
Mm.
That
Mm.
is what I would change. The need and the understanding of saying structure, process, discipline is important.
Terrific. And now my last question to you, and this is a question on failure. I've often said that parents in India, and I'm a parent, of course, with much, much older children, but parents in India don't teach children it's okay to fail.
Yeah,
We're always taught first in class, head of the line, and that manifests itself in our behavior patterns.
yeah,
Yet we fail, we learn.
yeah.
My question to you, Purnata, is what have been some of your learnings from some of your mistakes?
If I were to really look back, it's been really, there has been a common pattern in the mistakes that I have made, Ashutosh, and
Mhm.
I thinking about it. It is that my need for harmony and my need for keeping peace and keeping everyone happy professionally and personally led to me not looking at or postponing some really important conversations which later really blew up.
Mhm.
So, my lesson really in life from those failures of things blowing up in my face because I didn't address them at the right time is basically two things: is A, to have courage
Mhm.
to address issues with dignity and respect when required.
Okay.
And the other one is again a personal lesson, which is to be comfortable with a little bit of disharmony and discomfort if it's leading to a greater good.
Okay.
And that's something that I constantly again teach my girls.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Purnota, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for this amazing journey you've taken me on children and pediatric cancer and the need for nutrition. And thank you for the incredible work you and your colleagues are doing at Cuddles.
And thank you so much for creating awareness about this and giving me this opportunity. It made me really think about a lot of things we don't think about generally. So thank you so much, Ashutosh. It was a
Thank,
pleasure.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.